to stand among giants, in the shadow of towering peaks, where the air was thin and the world stretched vast and unyielding. Humanity found its place among the stars. They were fragile creatures compared to the colossal races that ruled the galactic expanse, beings of immense size, strength, and ancient wisdom. The Nalkari, towering over 30 feet tall, could crush a human with a flick of their wrist. The Oroshar, with their crystalline forms, shimmered like monolithic obelisks of light. Even the smallest of the clan, a people with skin as tough as tempered steel, were 5 times the height of a man. To them, humanity was an anomaly, weak, insignificant, and prone to failure, but humans had something the giants often overlooked: resolve. Captain Elias Drake stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the colossal alien structure ahead. The Clan War Council had summoned an emergency meeting, and humanity, as the newest addition to the Galactic Alliance, was invited, not as equals, but as observers. "Are you certain about this?" First Officer Yara Patel asked, her voice laced with concern. Elias adjusted the ceremonial sash across his chest, a symbol of Earth's fragile alliance. "We can't keep hiding in the shadows, Yara. If we're going to survive out here, they need to see us, not just as survivors, but as contenders." As the shuttle docked within the cavernous chamber of the clan assembly hall, Elias felt the weight of their smallness. The giants towered over them, their voices booming, their movements resonating like earthquakes, but Elias held his head high. When the council convened, it became clear why the meeting had been called. A new threat loomed on the galactic frontier, a fleet of biomechanical constructs consuming entire worlds. The Oroshar's ambassador, a being of radiant light, dismissed humanity's presence with a flicker of disdain. "This is not a matter for the frail," the Oroshar intoned. "Your kind would crumble like sand against the tide." Elias stepped forward, his voice steady despite the enormity of the beings around him. "With respect, Ambassador, frailty does not equate to weakness. Humanity has faced tides before, and we've learned to swim." Laughter rippled through the chamber, a deep, resonant sound that shook the floor, but Elias didn't falter. "The giants among you," he continued, "are used to relying on size and strength. Humanity, by necessity, relies on ingenuity. Let us prove our worth. Give us a chance to stand beside you, not beneath you." The clan leader, a titan of iron flesh and glowing eyes, leaned forward. "And what would you offer, human, against a force that devours worlds?" Elias glanced at Yara, who nodded. "Our minds, our adaptability, and our willingness to fight when all seems lost." The council debated, their voices a thunderous cacophony. Finally, the clan leader spoke. "Very well, Captain Drake, humanity will have its chance. You will lead the vanguard against the threat. Prove your worth, or be consumed." Months later, in the cold expanse of the void, the Resolute stood as a beacon of defiance. With human ingenuity, they had devised a weapon to counter the biomechanical menace, an electromagnetic disruption field designed to destabilize the constructs. The giants watched from the rear lines, their massive ships ready to intervene should the humans fail. But as the battle raged, it was humanity that turned the tide. The constructs faltered under the relentless assault of human strategy and innovation. When the last of the biomechanical ships disintegrated into nothingness, the giants looked upon the humans not with disdain, but with something new: respect. Elias, battered and exhausted, stood on the bridge of his ship, gazing at the wreckage. Yara smiled beside him. "We did it," she whispered. He nodded. "We stood among giants, and we didn't fall." From that day forward, humanity was no longer an afterthought in the galaxy. They were small, yes, but they had proven that even the smallest could rise to greatness. Title: Echoes of the Forge. Synopsis: in a galaxy where technological prowess determines survival, humanity's ancient knack for engineering and crafting is rediscovered, igniting a revolution that shakes the foundations of a stagnant universe ruled by advanced but complacent alien empires. Story: the planet known as Anvil was a barren wasteland, a forgotten colony on the edge of galactic civilization. Long ago, it had been abandoned, left to rust beneath endless storms of iron-rich dust. But where others saw decay, humanity saw opportunity. In the center of Anvil's largest canyon stood a massive forge, the heart of the human effort to reclaim their relevance in a galaxy that had moved on without them. The forge wasn't just a machine, it was a declaration. With hammer and plasma torch, humans were shaping their destiny. Arden Vos, a master engineer and leader of the Anvil Collective, stood on the edge of the forge's observation deck, staring down at the molten rivers of metal below. Every swing of the forge's mechanical arms and every spark that flew into the air spoke of progress, of defiance. "They said we couldn't adapt," Arden muttered, his voice heavy with determination. "We've always adapted," replied his second-in-command, Lin Yara, handing him a datapad, "but this time, we're more than survivors, we're creators." The datapad displayed schematics for their latest project, a hybrid starship crafted from salvaged alien technology and good old-fashioned human ingenuity. It wasn't sleek or elegant like the vessels of the Zenthari, nor was it as impenetrable as the bioships of the Vikla. It was rough, angular, and raw, but it worked. And it was fast. The galaxy's ruling species had grown complacent in their technological superiority. They had forgotten what it meant to innovate, to struggle for every inch of progress. When the Anvil Collective began testing their ships, no one paid attention. That was until the Forge Fire, humanity's first prototype, outran a Zenthari patrol fleet during a routine drill. The news spread like wildfire. "Have you seen it?" one Zenthari diplomat whispered to another in the halls of the Galactic Senate. "The humans are building again." The Vikla envoy, a towering creature with translucent skin that pulsed with bioluminescent energy, scoffed, "What can primitives build that we cannot? Their efforts are quaint." But Arden knew better. Humanity's strength wasn't in trying to match alien technology, it was in making the impossible work. Months later, when the Andair Rift opened, spewing forth an ancient threat long thought extinct, the Milax's swarm, humanity's creations proved their worth. While the Zenthari and Vikla fleets faltered under the overwhelming numbers of the swarm, the Forgefire and her sister ships danced through the chaos. Their modular designs allowed for rapid adjustments mid-battle. Plasma forges on board repaired critical damage in real time, while their unconventional weaponry turned the tide. Arden himself piloted the Forgefire, its cockpit a blend of human craftsmanship and scavenged alien tech. "Bring us closer," he barked, his eyes blazing with intensity. "But the swarm," Lin's voice crackled over the calms. "We're not running, we're forging a path." Arden cut her off. The Forgefire plunged into the heart of the swarm, its plasma cannons carving a fiery trail. The humans fought not with brute force but with precision, exploiting weaknesses the other species had overlooked. When the battle ended, it wasn't the towering Zenthari warships or the bioorganic monstrosities of the Vikla that stood victorious. It was the scrappy, smoke-streaked ships of the Anvil Collective. The Galactic Empires no longer viewed humanity as a relic of the past. Now, they saw them as something far more dangerous, a force of creation, adaptation, and relentless determination. As the Galactic Senate convened to address the aftermath of the swarm, Arden stood before the assembly, clad in a simple engineer's coat stained with grease and soot. "We are not giants," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "but we don't need to be. We forge our own path, and in the fires of our struggle, we shape the stars themselves." And so, humanity carved its place not as followers, but as trailblazers in a galaxy that had forgotten the meaning of progress. Title: The Quiet Uprising. Synopsis: On a planet where humans are subjugated and treated as second-class citizens by a telepathic alien race, one human discovers an ancient artifact that disrupts telepathic abilities. Armed with this newfound power, they spark a revolution that shakes the foundations of their oppressors. Story: The planet Elethros was a jewel of the cosmos, a world of shimmering oceans and lush forests, but to its human inhabitants, it was a prison. For centuries, the Elethrari, a telepathic alien species with opalescent skin and glowing eyes, ruled over humanity with an iron mind. Every thought, every whisper of dissent, was snuffed out before it could bloom. In the slums of New Solace, where the humans toiled, whispers persisted despite the danger, whispers of resistance, whispers of freedom. Jaron Cole, a miner in the sprawling caverns beneath Elethros, had no dreams of rebellion. He kept his head down, worked his shifts, and tried not to think too loudly, but fate had other plans. It began with a cave-in. Jaren had been working deep in the mines when the ceiling collapsed, trapping him and his crew. As the dust settled, Jaren's hand brushed against something smooth and cold. Digging through the rubble, he unearthed a strange, glowing device, a relic of some long-forgotten civilization. The moment he touched it, a wave of silence flooded his mind. The constant, invasive presence of the Elithrari telepaths vanished. For the first time in his life, his thoughts were his own. Jaren didn't tell anyone about the artifact at first. He smuggled it back to the slums, hiding it in the crawl space beneath his shack, but the silence it offered was intoxicating. For days, he experimented, discovering its range and power. Not only did it block telepathic intrusion, but it also disrupted the Elithrari's ability to communicate with one another. It was a weapon. When he finally shared his discovery with a trusted few, his sister Mara, a defiant spirit who had always dreamed of rebellion, and Derek, an old engineer who had seen too much suffering, they knew what it meant. "This changes everything," Mara said, her voice trembling with hope. Derek nodded, his aged hands tracing the artifact's surface. "If we can replicate it, we could level the playing field." The uprising began in whispers, shielded by the artifact's protective aura. Jaren and Mara led small teams to sabotage Elithrari infrastructure, their minds hidden from detection. For the first time, the humans could strike without fear of being read, their plans unraveling before they even began. As the resistance grew, so did the Elithrari's desperation. Their telepathic network, once an unbreakable chain of control, began to fray. The ruling class, accustomed to absolute dominance, found themselves vulnerable in ways they had never imagined. When the Elithrari sent in forces to crush the rebellion, Jaren activated the artifact in full. The telepaths collapsed, clutching their heads as their abilities short-circuited. Without their psychic advantage, they were forced to face the humans as equals, and they were unprepared. The final battle took place in the capital city of Zirion. The resistance, armed with scavenged weapons and makeshift shields, stormed the towering spires of the Elithrari palace. Jaren, carrying the artifact, led the charge. As they breached the inner sanctum, the Elithrari High Sovereign confronted them, a being of radiant light and immense power, but even the Sovereign faltered under the artifact's influence. "You dare defy us?" the Sovereign hissed, their voice reverberating in Jaren's mind despite the dampening field. "We don't just dare," Jaren replied, his voice steady, "we choose." With a surge of energy, the artifact unleashed a wave that shattered the Sovereign's connection to their people. The Elithrari fled, their once unassailable empire crumbling. Months later, Jaren stood atop the ruins of the palace, looking out over a free Elithros. Humanity was no longer a silent, subjugated population. They were builders, leaders, and dreamers once more. Mara approached, a smile breaking through the soot and grime on her face. "So, what now?" she asked. Jaren held the artifact in his hands. Its glow dim but steady. "Now, we rebuild, not just this world, but ourselves. No more masters, no more silence." The quiet uprising had become a roar, and humanity's voice would never be silenced again. Title: Seeds Among the Stars. Synopsis: After Earth's destruction, humanity is scattered across the galaxy in small, nomadic fleets. A brilliant scientist discovers a way to terraform dead planets, offering a chance to rebuild, but rival alien factions, seeing humanity's resilience as a threat, seek to stop them. Story: The fleet drifted in the void, its ships battered and patched together with scraps of alien technology. Humanity had survived the destruction of Earth, but survival wasn't living. The descendants of refugees had never known soil beneath their feet or the warmth of a sun. Drive. Elara Wynn stared at the hologram hovering in her lab. It was a barren rock, orbiting a dying star. To most, it was nothing more than another dead world. To Elara, it was hope. "I've done it," she whispered to herself, her voice trembling with disbelief. The device she had created, the Genesis seed, could terraform a planet in months instead of millennia. "Drive, Wynn, the Council is waiting," a voice crackled over her comm. She turned, gripping the small metallic sphere in her hand. Humanity's future fit into the palm of her hand. The council chamber aboard the Horizon's Dawn was filled with the leaders of the scattered fleet. Admiral Tarek Kane, a grizzled veteran of 100 skirmishes, eyed Alara skeptically. "This Genesis seed," he said, leaning forward, "you're saying it can give us a home?" Alara nodded. "Not just one home, many. With this technology, we can turn barren planets into lush, habitable worlds. We can rebuild." A murmur spread through the room, but not all were convinced. "Do you think the galaxy will let us do this?" Councilwoman Lyra Vance asked. "The Zurich Dominion already sees us as vermin. If they think we're taking planets, they'll try to stop us," Admiral Kane finished grimly. Alara's gaze was steady. "They've been trying to stop us for centuries, but this time, we won't just survive, we'll thrive." The first target was a lifeless moon orbiting a gas giant on the edge of Zurich-controlled space. Alara worked tirelessly, overseeing the deployment of the Genesis seed. The fleet's ships formed a defensive perimeter, bracing for the inevitable response. As the device activated, tendrils of light spread across the moon's surface, craters filled with water, air thickened, green shoots sprouted from cracks in the rock, reaching for the light of the distant sun. The crew of the Horizon's Dawn watched in awe as a dead world came alive. But the celebration was short-lived. "The Zurich fleet is on approach," a voice called over the comms. 15 warships, they'll be here in hours." Admiral Kane cursed. "Prepare for battle, we hold this position." Alara stepped forward. "Admiral, I can finish deploying the seed remotely, we can retreat." "No," he said firmly, "this is more than just a moon. This is our statement to the galaxy, we're not running anymore." The battle was fierce. The Zurich warships were larger, faster, and more heavily armed, but humanity had learned to fight against impossible odds. Using asteroid fields for cover and guerrilla tactics honed over generations, the fleet held their ground. Alara watched from the command deck as the moon transformed below them. Its surface was now a patchwork of blue oceans and verdant plains, a new Earth, born from the ashes of the old. A sudden explosion rocked the ship. The Zurich flagship had targeted the Horizon's Dawn. Alara clutched the railing, her mind racing. "We can't let them destroy it," she said. "If they destroy this moon, they destroy everything we've worked for." Admiral Kane turned to her. "What are you suggesting?" "I'll take the seed to the surface," she said. "If it's buried deep enough, they won't be able to undo the terraforming." "It's suicide," Kane warned. Alara met his gaze. "It's worth it." In a small shuttle, Alara descended to the moon's surface. The air was still thin, the ground unstable, but life had taken root. She activated the seed's core, burying it deep within the planet's crust. Above, the fleet fought valiantly. When the Zurich flagship finally fell, cheers erupted across the human ships. The moon had been saved. Alara's shuttle, damaged in the descent, couldn't take off again, but she didn't care. She stood on the surface of the newly reborn world, breathing its air, feeling the soil beneath her boots. For the first time in centuries, humanity had a home. In the years that followed, the Genesis seed technology transformed the galaxy. Humanity spread across the stars, reclaiming dead worlds and building alliances with those who had once scorned them. Alara Wynn's name became legend, a symbol of defiance, ingenuity, and hope. And on that first moon, now called Genesis Prime, a monument stood in her honor, for those who planted the seeds of tomorrow. Title: The Last Word. Synopsis. In a galaxy where wars are fought through debates of logic and rhetoric rather than weapons, humanity, dismissed as a young, chaotic species, faces its greatest challenge. A single human representative must outwit an alien adversary in the trial of voices to prevent humanity's annihilation. Story. The Chamber of the Trial of Voices was a masterpiece of acoustics and alien architecture. It was said that every word spoken within its walls could be heard across the galaxy, reverberating through the network of hyperwave communicators that connected all advanced civilizations. The air was thick with tension as Zyklvath, the champion of the Vokrath Dominion, stepped forward. His crystalline form glinted under the chamber's ethereal light, his voice a harmonious blend of frequencies. Humanity stands accused of recklessness, chaos, and dangerous ambition. If left unchecked, your kind will spread ruin across the stars. We demand your extinction for the safety of all. A ripple of agreement echoed through the assembled alien delegations. Humanity had no allies here. And yet, one human stood alone in the center of the chamber, undeterred. Ambassador Leela Wren had been chosen not for her political connections or her lineage, but for her sharp wit and unshakable resolve. She stepped forward, her voice steady. You fear us because we're unpredictable, because we don't fit into your neat little boxes, but I'm here to prove that humanity's greatest strength lies in that very chaos you despise. The trial of voices was no ordinary debate, it was a battle of minds, wits, and words, where each argument was scrutinized by the chamber's ancient AI arbiter. Lexicon, logic was paramount, but so was creativity. Points were awarded not just for sound reasoning but for emotional resonance and the ability to turn an opponent's argument against them. Zykel began, weaving a tapestry of logic that painted humanity as a reckless species. He cited wars, environmental destruction, and the aggressive expansion of human colonies. You burn too brightly, he said, his crystalline voice ringing like a chime, and flames, unchecked, consume all. The chamber murmured in agreement. But Leela was ready. She countered with a tale of resilience, of how humanity had faced extinction countless times, by plague, by war, by the vacuum of space, and had always risen stronger. Yes, we burn brightly, she said, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 stories, but that fire also warms, it fuels innovation, it lights the way in the darkness. Without fire, you stagnate. A flicker of approval passed through some of the delegations. The arbiter awarded her points for emotional impact. As the trial continued, the stakes rose. Zykel attacked humanity's unpredictability, calling it dangerous and irresponsible. Leela leaned into the accusation. Unpredictability is only dangerous if you fear change, she argued. We thrive because we embrace the unknown. While the Vokoth grow stagnant in their crystalline perfection, we adapt, we innovate, we create. The arbiter chimed, argument sustained. Creativity acknowledged. The debate turned personal in the final round. Zykel, his voice sharpening, declared, humans are nothing but individuals clawing for survival. You have no unity, no true purpose. Leela smiled, her confidence unwavering. You're right, Zykel, we are individuals, but that's our power. Every human is a unique voice in the symphony of our species. We disagree, we argue, we fight, but in our chaos, we find balance. And together, our voices are unstoppable. She stepped closer, her gaze piercing. Your dominion may be a perfect crystal, Zykel, but crystals shatter under pressure. Humanity is a river, ever changing, ever flowing. You can't break us, because we'll simply find another path. The chamber fell silent, even Zykel seemed momentarily at a loss. When the arbiter finally spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical. The trial of voices has concluded. The arguments of both parties have been evaluated. The representative of humanity has demonstrated exceptional adaptability, creativity, and resolve. The chamber held its breath. Humanity will not be extinguished. Their potential outweighs the risk they pose. Cheers erupted from the human delegation, a small group seated far in the back. Leela exhaled, her hands trembling slightly. As the chamber emptied, Zykel approached her, his crystalline form dimming. You've won this trial, he said, his tone unreadable, but humanity will face many more. Are you prepared for the burden you've claimed? Leela met his gaze. We always are. Humanity's victory in the trial of voices marked a turning point in galactic history. From that day forward, their chaotic brilliance became both a source of fear and admiration among the stars, and Leela Wren, the woman who spoke for an entire species, became a legend. Her words echoed for centuries. In our chaos, we find balance, and together, our voices are unstoppable.